Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, yes, we are back. We are black. It is Black Mental Matters. I'm your boy, Vince the Voice, joined by none other than the lady with you got the man with the plan, she the woman with the plan. Makeba, Coach Makeba, how you doing?
I like that. I'm doing pretty good, Vince. Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm doing well, and we're so happy to be back together with everyone. Black Mental Matters. As you said, we shouldn't have left them with a podcast. How'd you say it, Makeba?
It's been a long time. We shouldn't have left you without a podcast to step to.
Step two, go ahead, girl. I love it. Well, for those of you who didn't know, Makeba and I think with 2019, we started this podcast, Black Mental Matters, wanting to eradicate the stigma as it relates to mental health in the Black community. 82 great episodes, Makeba, some great guest therapists. I mean, what's your thought on it was amazing.
Oh, it was absolutely incredible. I mean, and just going back through some of our old episodes, they still apply to things that are going on right now in our community. So I'm really glad about the content that we put out there already.
And we encourage you to visit some of those episodes. I mean, whether you're talking about your kids, your relationships. COVID was a big thing, but folks who are out on the front lines, you need more help than anybody, and we try to address all those things. And so here we are, the relaunch of Black Mental Matters. May is Mental Health Month, and Makeba and I, what we do is we get on the phone or get face to face, and we think and talk about what's going on in the world. And we decided, Makeba, well, you tell us what we decided our first topic is going to be on.
Yeah, so we decided that our first topic is going to be on grief and looking into the normal grieving process, what is not normal with grieving, and also just how it applies to us culturally and why we grieve or do not grieve the way that we are supposed to.
Yeah, everyone knows when we lose someone that we love, it's a whirlwind of emotions that can make our head spin. Sadness, anger, denial, hopelessness. It's a complex situation. And so it can come as a surprise that further down the road, you find, 3, 5, 10 years later, if you haven't addressed it. So I'm so glad because it affects us all. There's no way to get around it. If you lose mama, if you lose your brother, if you lose your friend, if you lose your teacher, you lose your dog.
Yes.
You could face some kind of grief.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that we're talking about it, and also that you brought up what we've talked about in the past, because when it comes to grief, I was actually listening today to a podcast with a woman that was talking about she attended her grandmother's online funeral. And she said that after it was over, she didn't know what to do because she felt like if she logged off, it was like the end of, her saying goodbye to her grandmother. Wow. And of course, this was during the pandemic. Wow. And she also said that she ended up inadvertently listening or watching the next funeral. So funeral parlor directors out there, just be mindful that like the live stream, like let it end so that the, clients aren't, just, so I wasn't aware of that, Vince. So that whole process with online viewing of funerals, which now people have because they're not able, sometimes to travel to say goodbye to loved ones, that's a piece that is causing people to not, again, grieve properly. The lady was talking about how after the service was over, she was just by herself in her house. And she said she was thinking about how back in the past when she had gone to funerals, when with her family members, that at the funeral and even afterwards, there's this collective, grieving process and their support. But with the online model, we've completely just kind of ignored the fact that, hey, this person is now grieving. The funeral service is over. What an opportunity for therapists to be engaged with some of those funeral services to say, hey, family members, we have this additional service in place for people that are grieving the loss of their loved ones, that you have someone to talk to after this live streaming. So just what an opportunity for us to now be able to introduce some new ideas.
I like that, and I hope the therapist heard it. But we'll make sure we reiterate that once again. You know, being there physically around the whole funeral process, so that they can help the families get through that. You know, and forgive me, Makeba. I know that you yourself you were dealing. You know, and this is one of the reasons why we want to talk about this, because everyone you know has a different experience. However, we're still the same. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Where everybody's different, but we still, you know, are the same. And and you know, again, God bless him that you had lost your dad. But it took you a while, as it did my wife. I will share with everyone. It took her years to get over the loss of her mom, and so you wanted to share about that, son.
Oh no, yeah, and I really appreciate Tracy, your wife, sharing, her
Mhm,
story about her mom.
mhm,
Just beautiful, and just the memories that she, was sharing with, me and my husband as well, just with the whole grieving process. And I think we were all talking about that, of just how long that grieving process can be. But unfortunately, a lot of us don't realize that that process should not become such that it's impacting your like day-to-day life. When my father passed away, I was so grief stricken that I was like frozen in time almost, just for
mhm,
lack of a better word. And I was thinking about this today. My father told me a story of when his mom passed away. He said that they were all at home. She had gone to the hospital, and that they were all waiting for their little sister to come, to come back home with their mom. And my dad said that, they lived in like a little one room, little, place in Mississippi. So you can just imagine, back in the 1930s, 40s in Mississippi, just, what that must have been like, with poverty and everything. And so my dad said that they were all sitting in the house waiting for their mom to come home just from the hospital, like she had done all these other times, because, my dad had a big family. And he said that he could hear click, clack, click, clack, click, clack in the
mm,
middle of the night. And all the kids were up and they heard click, clack, click, clack.
mm.
And they said, my father said that it was their neighbor. It was a blind neighbor down the street who had found out that my dad's mom had passed, and he was coming to deliver the news. And so this was my father's first
Yeah.
and experience with grief. So he hears click clack, middle of the night, this little old blind man walking to their house, knocks on the door. My dad's family opens the door. The man blurts out, your mama died. Turned around. It's like it's like an
Oh.
episode out of it's kind of funny now when you kind of look back on it now. And even my father was saying it, it
Mm,
was kind of comical. But the the story behind that is there's not a grieving process with that. And that was my father's first introduction to grief. And because it wasn't, hey, family, this is what happened. Let's all get together. Let's grieve. This is terrible. No, it was your mama died. And now it was like, hey, y'all got to figure out what y'all going to do with all these kids and no mama.
oh my God, the trauma
Yeah,
that
so
is.
that
Yeah.
was, and so my dad never really had a good relationship with grief, and so I never, had one. So it's great to have these conversations now and and talking about this, because I'm sure everybody has a story that they can share where they had some type of something happen in their life where they lost a loved one or a friend or someone that they were close to, and they weren't allowed to grieve properly, and they never even thought about it, and how that impacts not just you, but when you have a family, Vince, and you have children,
Mm,
and say, okay, their grandmother passed. You have to now relay this information to a child. That
yeah.
child is watching how, number one, you explain that loss of that loved one to them. They're paying attention to that. And also, number two, they're paying attention to how you are handling that loss. So
Mm.
if you are creating this environment where, hey, this is not something we talk about, it's not something you can talk about with me, and I'm close to you. What is that child supposed to do? That then becomes an emotion where I'm not supposed to talk about this. This is shame and a gray area. And I'm just going to push this emotion down. And
And
then
then
that's
it
where you
becomes
have, mental health issues and
mental
even
health,
physical
that
problems.
unprocessed grief, can just take over. It can take over your whole ability to function. It affects your job everywhere you go. And if you don't give yourself that time and space, I know you always about that space to process your grief, it can turn into the mental health conditions, depression, anxiety. May not want to leave the house, may not want to connect with other people or do the things that you used to do. And so I guess what we're here to say to you today, everyone, is that you do need to process. As I shared with you, I lost my mom in 2016, and I'm the baby boy, so it was me and mom. I mean, ace boo coon, that kind of thing. But what I do take away from all that is because we spent so much time with each other. And yes, I still do get melancholy and things like that. In fact, I share with you, my brother. I wish I had that song about it's been a long. I started bawling about 2 weeks ago. That Wiz Khalifa "Till I See You Again" song. There are times, but once I did, I sat there, this grown man bawling like a baby. I felt so good afterwards. I felt so good. It felt like I just, spread and showed my love for them. And as I always say, the folks' lives were not in vain. So we have to carry on, but it is tough when that person has such an influence on your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And Vince, you just touched on something very important. What you did was almost like a ritual
Mm,
where when you hear a song that puts you in a space where you're reminded of your brother and you're able to grieve and to cry and to let those feelings out.
mhm,
I was studying qigong, and I was trying to find some qigong that would help me just with relaxation and depression and anxiety. And I found accidentally some qigong exercises that were for grief. And
mm,
I was surprised to learn that during the exercises, they're actually doing along with the physical movements, they also assign like a guttural sound to a
mm,
lot of the movements that almost sound like sobbing or like pain or expressions of pain. And when I saw that, I was like, this is what we're missing. We don't have a space or permission just to let it out. Like
mhm.
most of us, when we cry, you start crying. Oh, I'm
You're
sorry.
trying to hold it in. Yeah,
It's
yes.
embarrassing. No one should ever apologize for a
Mm,
tear coming
mhm.
down their face.
Right.
When I was a kid, I used to wonder why when you cried, something physical came out of your body. I used
Wow.
to think about that as a kid, and now I kind of think about maybe it's
Mm,
because those toxins
yes.
have to be released, and that water is that conduit from
Yes.
that your body.
Cleansing, even water is
Yes,
cleansing. It's cleansing you of the pain. It's cleansing you of the hurt. It's cleansing you of the grief. Oh my goodness, Makeba. Mm.
yes, preach it, Vince. I'm
Hey,
gonna
no, no,
have
no. You,
the
hey,
correction plate.
you wrote it down. I just said it. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
You wrote it down. But I do feel a moment, as you said, the guttural and crying and letting it go. Hey, you see me? I'm a grown man. Ain't nothing wrong, fellas, with you lost your mama, you lost your woman, you lost your child, your dog. I mean, we're not gonna go to the mall, which actually I did one time and started playing in Walmart right there on the thing. I started balling in the store one time.
uh,
However, we're not going there with the intention of I'm gonna go out here and demonstrate my grief or anything like that. But you do need to take some time to just let it go, let it out. And I guarantee you again, you're gonna feel so much better.
absolutely. And it doesn't have to be something, like super complicated. Like for example, I had a shirt that
Mm,
I wore during the time that my father was passing away, and I could not get myself to throw that shirt away or do anything, repurpose it. So it was just sitting in my closet. And every time I saw it, it was like, oh man, it would just put me in this depressed state. And
mm,
so what I did one day is I took that shirt and I went in my room and in my childhood bedroom, and I got some paint and I turned on some music and I took off my shoes and I painted that shirt that I
mm,
had on with
mm,
him, and I painted yellow flowers because I love sunflowers. So I painted yellow flowers all over the shirt, and then I hung it up in, like almost like artwork.
yes.
And Vince, when I did that, and this was like hours, maybe like 4 or 5 hours, I was just painting, crying, listening to music, painting, crying. And after I did that, I felt like for the first time, like the needle had been moved on, like my grieving process. Like, man, like the next time it didn't feel as bad when I thought about my father. So exactly what you said that you did, where you listened to that music and you were like, and you like just let yourself just be kind of in the
Yes.
moment, just
Yes.
in the present moment, not embarrassed, not
Yes.
self-conscious, and just letting it out. And your loved one needs that too,
Mm,
because your loved one would not want you just to be wandering around,
mm,
on earth in pain and sad and depressed and not paying attention to the people who are still here. That is to me the most important thing, and why I had to kind of wake up out of my prolonged grief disorder, because I have a husband and I have kids and I have my mom who's still here.
that's
So
right.
that's why it's important to kind of get a handle on it when you feel like it's kind of taking over your life.
I don't know if there is I mean, you tell me, you're the expert of if there is a certain window of time that people say you should take. Um, can you give some input
Yeah,
on that,
no,
Makeba?
that's a good question. And that's actually that's controversial right now, because some people feel like it should take as long as it should.
Mm,
However, I think it's really the question of, do you feel personally like you are stuck?
mm,
Like if there are some people that are okay after 3 4 months after losing a loved one. I've seen that. Like I have family members that have loved ones, and that have lost loved ones, and I see them. I'm like, man, I wish I had that, like whatever that is, like. And I know that they were close to the family member because we're all close together. So I don't think there's a time limit on it. I think it's kind of case by case, but you need to ask yourself, number one, do you feel like you're not paying attention to other aspects in your life that need attention? And do you also feel like sometimes that you're not able to move forward with, like,
mm,
the person's birthday comes and you can't go to work.
mm,
Their death anniversary comes
mm,
and you're locked in on that person's death anniversary. I've actually told myself I'm going to talk to my kids about them not memorializing the day that I die, and to
mm.
remember the time that I'm here, just to make sure that you have that kind of conversation with your kids before anything happens to you.
Well, it's interesting that you, not interesting, but I mean, right? Because one of the things we do want to do with this podcast throughout, no matter what the subject matter is give some direction, give some hope, give some steps that people can take. And when you mentioned the first, that can be a very tough time. You always, Mother's Day is coming up. This is for, I'm sure, if not hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of people, this will be their first Mother's Day that they won't have with their mother. Eating dinner around the table and bringing her flowers or going to church and things like that. And, we have talked about that people are not, once they go on to glory. They're not ghosts. They're still a part of our lives. They're still, so there are things that we can do to, as you say, memorialize, to make sure that they're not forgotten. And so I would like for you, if you could, give us some idea of some of the things that people can do when those anniversaries come around, or when they feel like, hey, I got to do something as a tribute to that lost one, that loved one that I lost.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think number one is to remember the importance of getting to the place where that person's memories make you happy. Like
Mm,
that should number one be your goal. Um, I think a really good thing is planting something in nature. My
mm,
dad loved roses, so every time I see rose bushes, I'm like, oh, I always think about him. Writing a poem
mm.
in someone's memory. Um,
Frame it,
oh,
put it on the wall. Yeah, yeah.
yes. Actually, Amazon has really, really great like little things you can put on mugs. You can put someone's picture, on a mug. There are all types of little things that you can do to commemorate your loved one, just from, writing a poem, um, just doing something even online for them, just
Mhm.
something that you feel like you are marking that person as you are not going to forget them.
Yes, yes. And for those, everybody is different. Everybody's the same, but everybody's different. For those who may, I don't know, may not want to, even though they love them just as much as we loved ours, may not want to, but their lives have still been affected. I've got some things here, Makeba, that have been recommended that you can do. One of them being to establish a simple routine, waking up at the same time every day, going to bed at the same time every day, because it's very easy to sit there on the couch all night long, dwelling in that. Eat at regular meal times, find a simple activity to walk each day, a to-do list, keep an active focus on your health. As you said, you got to be there for the loved ones that are here with you now, right?
Yes.
Visit your doctor, tell your doctor about it. You know what? Hey, doc, I recently lost my mom. I recently lost my dog, whatever it is, because it can be very stressful. Let your doctor know what's going on. Follow up. You may need a little something, something to get you through just for a moment. Connect with people. Connect with people. This internet, and there's all kind of meetups everywhere. Seek out opportunities to be with your family and friends, especially those that listen good. You don't want to be with the ones that's gonna make you cry all the time, or the ones, the ones I'm talking about. Accept invitations. A woman told me, and it was more to do with business. She said, Vince, you need to be careful what you say no to. And I was like, hmm. At first, I didn't get it. And then, like a day or two later, it hit me like a ton of bricks. You're right. Sometimes, you need to, and I can assure you that every time in the world of business, it was an unexpected situation that developed in a place that I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go, and then I ended up meeting the Shah of Iran, and a life changing event, So, but there are things, sitting quietly, and think about them. If you want, just like you were saying earlier, put the music on, talk to them as though they was right there sitting next to you. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, that's not something you may want to do at the mall, but sit there and talk, play the music that reminds you of them. Oh my gosh. All that Aretha Franklin's and to Otis Reddings and all that kind of stuff. Allow yourself to cry. You said it earlier. Write a letter, a journal, the events even leading up to their death. I want to, as a result of what we're doing, my dad, my brother, all my ancestors, develop some type of scholarship, because we want more young people in that mental health space. And that's the way I want to show my tribute. You said plant a bush. Remember the libations? You know what that was all about.
Yeah, that's right.
Pour out a little bit. It ain't got to be Coke
Right.
45 or Hennessy, and then
Exactly.
take a sip. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I like that. Yeah, and everybody should have conversations with their loved ones
Mm,
about about this topic, and to not be afraid to say, hey, we need to talk about what things are going to be like when I'm not here anymore. That's so
Mhm.
important.
Hmm. Sometimes it's hard, as the, especially if you're the child, you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear mama saying she ain't gonna be here. Where you going? I'm going with you if that's the case. But it is. It's that circle of life, and strong families. They just continue to, one picks up the mantle and keeps it going. But the main point, there's nothing wrong with being sad. There's nothing wrong. I mean, matter of fact, that's what makes you right, is that you're grieving, that you're sad because of the loss of a loved one. But there are things that you can do so this doesn't overtake you, because there have been people who it took them to the ultimate because of the loved one that they lost. You hear so many times, especially with older couples, in their 70s, 80s, what have you. If one of them goes, it's not uncommon that within a week sometimes. They said they
Yes.
was married 65 years, and she died on Thursday, and he died and he was all right, but he died on Sunday.
Yes.
Um,
And that's why the grief process is so hard, Vince, is because your identity, a big part of your identity is with that person.
mm,
And then that person is gone. Like my dad, I was very like, and you're with your mom, like that was your ace,
mm,
and a lot of your identity was with her, and who you are is wrapped up in who she was.
mm-hmm,
So absolutely. And so that's why it's also important to have your spiritual connection, if you have one as well, and to also know that there's something bigger than you that you also need to stay connected to, and that'll help you stay grounded as well through this process.
I always say and think, they continue to live through us. I mean, I sometimes I catch myself saying some things I know that they would have said, or that they would have done, or how my brother, what he would have put on for this type of affair. And, you can, as you say, talk to them, but you can also talk to yourself about them. Some questions you can ask. What did you learn from them? What did you learn from your mom? What did you learn from your dad? What did you learn from your husband or wife? What were their values that are important to you today? What would they do? What they say? What what would Jesus do? What would Bobby do at this time? What history did you share?
Uh,
Because I know as you get older and older, there's less and less people who can share in those stories with you. So you got to keep them alive. What happened then? What happened when? What advice would they give you now? I always, like I say again, what would mama say? What would Jesus do? And who can you share those stories with today? There are still some people, your dad's friends. I keep up, with some of mom's old friends, and we get to smiling and thinking about things. And, so it can be not a joyous experience, but it can be an emotional experience, and it can be a good experience. Grief is with us, and sadness for a reason, so that you can get through this and still have, it all together up here.
Absolutely. And just one last thing, Vince, in the grieving process, let's also not forget that sometimes there's anger. There's
Mm,
anger under the grief, or mixed in with the grief, that people aren't comfortable expressing, because sometimes you don't even realize you are angry that that person is gone. You're
mm.
angry that that person was taken away. You're angry that the way that person was died, because it wasn't fair. It was unjust the way that they passed. So that also needs to be released. And that's where a lot of physical activity can come in, where that's beneficial to get those emotions out of your system, especially if you're feeling grief, depression, and anger.
And that's where Coach Makeba, ladies and gentlemen, can help you greatly. Makeba, she is a former world boxing champion. That's right, believe it or not. Makeba, that lady right there,
Oh,
boxing
Lord.
champion, right there. I'm pointing at you, right there. And she has developed I want you to tell them, but by using boxing to get that, as you say, get that aggression out, as well as getting your mind straight. Would you tell us about it, Coach
Yeah.
Makeba?
Yeah, sure. So boxing is evidence-based that research does show that it does significantly have an impact on PTSD, prolonged grief disorder, depression, anxiety, and that boxing helps people to not just move through their grief process, but it also empowers them, and it
Mm,
also allows them to feel like they are able to conquer and feel stronger than that heaviness that is weighing them down.
that's
Yeah,
right.
so there are actually a lot of other people out there, like in Europe, all across the world, that are doing the same type of thing. It's called loss therapy or loss training. There are all types of different people out here doing it. So this is actually what I'm doing right now. It's release therapy, coachmakeba.com. I'm working with licensed therapists. I'm working with individuals that are established in therapy that are looking for additional assistance in grief support. So yeah, we would definitely love to talk about that more. Just reach out to me at coachmakeba.com.
We encourage you. That's right. That's what it's all about. And congratulations and kudos to you and the ladies. I saw y'all boxing chicks in there doing your thing. And that's what it's all about. We're here to help each other, ladies and gentlemen. We're not in this thing alone. I'm Vince the Voice. That's Makeba, Coach Makeba. And you can reach out to us. Email is at info@blackmentalmatters.com. We invite you to go to our website, www.blackmentalmatters.com. The social media. We look to see you out in the community. We hope to work with you out in the community, and we can all get through all these things together. So, Makeba, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Vince. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.